G'day folks, it's John here from Gingrich Construction. And today it was last night, I was doing some welding here on aluminum for the first time. And it's not working, anyway. So we're going to drop that right now. And I'd like to do a video on a hammer. Hammers are something that have really intrigued me ever since I started framing, well, tools in general. And what makes a hammer work and what doesn't. And over the, I guess I'll have to stop and think on that. It's over 10 years now that I started framing. I've modified a number of hammers and tried different things. I'm actually not sure how many hammers I've had, but it's quite a few. And I've now settled on the hammer that I think is the ultimate, the perfect, not perfect. I've never yet found a perfect hammer. And I still am looking for that perfect hammer. But I believe that I've found as close to it as possible. Now any of you who are framers and have used the Stiletto are thinking that's what I'm going to say. And you are right. And that's what I personally carry. This here is the Stilleto Tbone 15 ounce that I carry every day. I've had it now for maybe 3 years, this one. The first one I had when they first came out in our area, it got stolen one day when somebody cleaned our tool trailer out, and they said, I'm never going to buy one again. $300 hammer gone, right? Well, since then I broke down and I gave up I was using a 24 ounce S-wing, and I switched to the Stiletto again, and I haven't regretted it. I really like the hammer, everything about it feels right, but it does have its drawbacks. It is not a perfect hammer, so I am still interested in finding that perfect hammer. About a year ago, Canadian Tire, I seen in one of their flyers they had a all titanium hammer, much like the Stiletto, but it's in the Mastercraft Maximum series. So this is a review and comparison of the Mastercraft titanium hammer, which I have right here. Now since I've gotten this hammer, Stiletto no longer offers it. They offer a different version of it. And I would also like to bring that into the comparison here as well, because you currently won't be able to get this handle. So here is the star, in a sense. This is the hammer we're going to talk about today. The first impressions in the store, it was very nice. It's well balanced. It swung nice. Yes, it's a nice hammer. And then taking it on the job and using it, my impression wasn't quite as good. And I'd like to point out why. But there's things that I definitely do like about it better than the Stiletto. And I would also like to show that to you as well. As far as I know, it's the only all titanium framing hammer out there other than Stiletto. I really like that. I don't like a wooden handled hammer. In short, I'm too rough on things. I'd break the handle. Our wooden sleds don't last either. So I do want an all steel hammer. I've used the DeWalt, the Stanley, go on down the list. None of them are even competitors for the perfect framing hammer. And it would actually be interesting to do a video on features of hammers and what makes or breaks a hammer is a framing aspect, regardless of brand or price, and just simply point out features. I may do that sometime. But anyhow, let's look at this hammer. Here is a new out-of-box Stiletto with the new handle. Now, these two hammers weigh very much the same. I never actually threw them on a scale. This one is called a 16 ounce, this one's called a 15. To feel them, they feel the same. And there is a few very distinct differences. With the Stiletto, we're familiar with the replaceable head. We're also familiar with the replaceable head turning and having to loosen the bolt, realign, and tighten the bolt again, and it moves again. I have tried numerous different ways to make it so this head does not turn. I have not found a foolproof way. They seem to all turn. This bolt seizes in the head for me, and it is the thing that I do not like about stiletto. I would think that there should be no way that they could not make this head fit the keyway and the hammer better and not allowing it to turn. The Mastercraft, as you see, has a solid head. There is no face. It's titanium right out to the edge. Now that has its drawbacks as well. Titanium chips sooner. It's not going to last as long. I can't simply replace the face. And replacing the face on here costs the same as buying a cheap hammer. The whole hammer is expensive. Likewise here. This hammer regular is around $200 Canadian, and I picked this one up on sale for $100. So if I can pick this hammer up on sale, it doesn't have to last near as long. I think the last one bought on the crew was $240 on sale. So there is a substantial difference. The other difference on this hammer is the claw. If you put these side by side, you'll see the stiletto claw is much thinner at the end, and the Mastercraft hammer has a uniform thickness all the way out and has a fairly blunt edge. Now that may be good depending what you're doing, because if you chip a lot with the claw, the hammer chips and it'll shorten. Here's my other one. I don't know if you can see the difference at all, but there is definitely a difference. I would say that we're at about a 1/4 inch shorter than it would have been from new. And I've tried to be relatively careful. But what this means, the first job I used this on, we had to reach back between two joists and we were chipping. And it did not work very good. There wasn't much room to swing. But I went and I threw it in the trailer and I grabbed my stiletto again. It worked better. Part of that is the angle. When you pull a nail, the greater the curve in the claws, the easier the nail pulls out. A framing hammer often has a straight claw, and that's great for many things, but giving you strength pulling a nail out is not. But with stiletto we have the side nail puller. If you've ever used one, you know there's no going back, and that to me is a must anymore. The Mastercraft does not have that option. It's a solid head. So in giving you a little more curve with the claws is actually a good thing in this case. It's an in-between, it works for both, not ideal in either camp. But we're talking a cheaper hammer here. The balance of the hammer, that is something that I noticed right away and is very important to me. I think the key in having a good swinging hammer is balance. And this hammer balances slightly forward. It is heavier on the head than it is on the stiletto. I don't know if I can show that to you here or not, but I'll try at the end of the video. Now, side to side, that balance is important in a hammer as well. I've experimented with an S-wing I had, and it came from factory unbalanced, and you could not swing that hammer straight. In fact, that hammer was thrown in the garbage by my foreman who gave up on it, and I pulled it out of the garbage because I didn't want to spend the money on another hammer. And I played with it, and then I ground off on the side of the head until it balanced. After that, the hammer swung true. So a carefully balanced hammer is very important. Both of these hammers, I would feel, are equally well balanced. They are both quality in that respect. This one will feel heavier to the swing due to its more weight forward design. And for some applications, that may be nice, but I can't see that it makes a difference in hitting the nail. The grip is more comparable on this one to the older style because of the flare up here. That is something I really like. I tend to hold my hammer back here, and with it being just rounded without that axe handle, and I'm not sure what you'd call it properly, this here moves in my hand more, and I don't really like that. Now these flare out sideways, so I can't say, I have not used this new handle very much, just or I'll be one of the other guys' hammers once in a while to try it out. I don't like it as much as my old axe handle, which is this one here, which most people would be familiar with. Stiletto's had it for years, and I really like it. It allows me to hold with these two fingers right at the end here. I don't have to fear about losing the hammer. Now, having said that, the stiletto, the metal of the handle ends somewhere in here, and when you let the handle twist in your hand a lot and you work it, they'll split here. My brother-in-law, he's been killing a hammer about every year, or rather the grip, because the end keeps coming off. That's the most common failure we've seen on the stiletto as far as the handle goes, right at the end of the titanium. Now this hammer handle is actually thicker. It flares up at the end. I like that. Flares down and it flares wider. It fits very nice. I do like their grip, except this gray at the end is a fairly hard plastic. Well, it's not a plastic, it is a rubber, but it does not have as much give as the stiletto handle does. So when you hold, this edge cuts into your hand each time, and it's not as comfortable. I've considered maybe taking a flop wheel and just grinding off the edge, make it a little more rounded. We'll see what I do there. The rest of the grip fits very nice. It's got a very nice palm swell, I'm not sure what you would call it, when you choke up for finer work. And when you come back here, if that's how you hold a hammer, it's a very comfortable fit. And I have a large hand, so a lot of things aren't made to fit as well. And also, you'll see here, we see this in some more hammers now, a flat spot for setting your thumb. I kind of like that personally. If I'm doing overhead nailing, especially in a tight area, I like to be able to flip it on my thumb and give it a fulcrum. Other than that, the finish on the hammer, it's not as nice. But does that really matter? No, I've never seen the finish on a hammer make a nail go in any better. And when you miss the nail, it doesn't move. You can't scare them. So I'm not so concerned about the finish of a hammer. I want the function to be nice. And speaking of hitting and missing, the nail puller. Now I should grab a nail here. I'll grab it on my tool belt. Did I say nail puller? That's incorrect. Nail starter. There is a difference. It does hold a nail well. The nail fits in there, but the nail is quite loose and the magnet is relatively weak. If you put a nail on the floor, you can't just go in and pick it up. It doesn't work. Take my old stiletto here. It's a tight fit. The nail doesn't rattle. The magnet is strong. The magnet is right up where the nail sets against it. And you don't often lose a nail. If you did lose a nail, it's probably because you caught it on something or were swinging like a madman. Here, the magnet is further out. The nail goes against it, but it simply must be a weaker nail or a weaker magnet. Other than that, the nail sits in well, and it does start well if you don't swing too fast. Other differences in the head. This part of the hammer is higher than here, but it is not higher than the outside edge. And that's good. It's important that the face of a hammer comes up as far as the head of the hammer or the claws. If we look at a stiletto, we see the same thing. The plane follows straight through. And that is really important. If you're nailing in against somewhere, you have to be able to hit the nail, not hit the head on the plywood or whatever you're hitting against. Now, if you look at the Stanley and DeWalt and other hammers, I'm not I shouldn't be saying brands really because you see it in quite a few brands, they have the edge quite rounded. That basically makes a large face as useless as a small face. Actually worse, you don't get a miss, you get a bent nail. And I do not like that at all. It's a bit of a beef of mine. I don't want this big face that keeps me from getting into areas that I can't use. The Mastercraft, it's usable. It's flat, side to side. So much so that it does really do a number on a finger. I experimented with hammer faces back when I was younger. Convex, concave, finishing right to the edge, rounding the edge a little bit. A slightly concave hammer face is the best for striking a nail and not having it bend, but it does an absolute number on your finger. If you ever hit, it cuts. That's not a good option unless you never hit yourself. And I haven't met the framer who doesn't. Flat, it must be flat and true. With the edge slightly rounded, not too much. The stiletto has enough. You wouldn't want to go more, but I think it's a good balance between safe and having a good area to strike the nail. Now with the Mastercraft, again, thinking about faces, you can only get it in a milled face, and that's something we actually don't permit our framers to use. If we're doing metal trim or anything like that, there's too much chance of creating a scratch or damage that we need to replace the piece. So we do all smooth face. So I would grind this off. I thought I'm going to do that, but not before this video. And I'd also like to round this edge slightly so I don't lose as much skin. It is on the big side. Any bigger, I think it would be clumsy. It is right at the maximum size. It is very slightly bigger. Maybe that isn't slightly, but I'd call it slightly bigger than the stiletto. And personally, I don't think we have to be bigger than what the stiletto face is, so I would make it slightly smaller around and bring it out square. Because one thing you'll find, if you're striking alongside of, let's say you have a stud and you're trying to toenail, you don't have a lot of room for this, so you're striking like so. When you catch the wood, this thing grabs. You can't slide along the wood. I like when the face comes back straight. It allows you to take your hammer and slide it along the wood. A good guy on a hammer can use a lot of things to his advantages that when we're learning seem very difficult. So overall impression on this hammer. It's unfortunate that I used a stiletto first and I've used it for as long as I have. This thing, it doesn't cut it. It doesn't really appeal to me. I would say spend the money, buy the stiletto. It has its drawbacks with the face rotating, but really, it's the best swinging hammer you can buy. The thing is just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just a beauty to use. This thing, it is actually very close. If you've used an S-wing, or let's say you're, there's a lot of steel hammers striving to meet that light titanium hammer market with steel. All of those, if you were to take that group of hammers, in which there is some very nice hammers, I think you will find this to be a beautiful hammer to use. The difference between titanium and steel is a definite distinct difference, and it allows you a strong handle without going to wood or fiberglass. So for pulling nails, twisting sideways, you don't have to worry about breaking your handle, and you've got the dampening of the titanium. I personally have never swung a steel hammer that competes with titanium, and I'm not into the different metallurgy of why or what. I just know it works, and that's basically enough for me sometimes. So if you're starting out and you want to try a titanium hammer, the $300 to go to the Stiletto looks big, by all means, use this. It's going to last you for a lot of years. I don't think you'll have a problem with it. The grips, it's a comfortable grip. I think it's well attached. I never sensed any twisting or moving of the handle. I don't have any fear of it actually, as far as being inferior. And Mastercraft has a very good warranty. If you break it, it's lifetime. You take it in, they'll give you a new hammer. So you can't lose in that respect either. And there is one very significant place where I'm going to assume now that this is better than the Stiletto. Forming. If you do concrete forming, the forming oil destroys these handles. They come off. I don't know what it is about the oil, but stilettos and concrete do not mix whatsoever. Also, chipping concrete is really hard on titanium. Chipping concrete is really hard on titanium, but the DeWalt and Stanley, their handles seem to last quite a bit better. They don't seem to really have a problem with the forming oil. And this handle reminds me a lot of the Stanley DeWalt family. Actually, many DeWalt tools do. So I'm going to assume, and we know what assuming does, that this handle is actually the same material. It feels the same. Let's hope it is, because it would be a very good option for guys who are doing concrete work and forming. Especially with a thicker claw, you'll be able to chip more concrete before you actually wear it back. And with concrete, the fine claws isn't going to be as important. Well, thanks for watching. I'm glad I bought this hammer and used it. I'm planning on grinding the face down, making it smooth, putting a bit of an edge on there, or rounding it. So hopefully when I'm striking alongside something, that it slides instead of catches. And I'm thinking I'll probably thin down the ends here of the claw, and I might throw out my tool belt again and give it another whirl, see what I think. Just because I am like that. I like trying new things.